Okay, good. All right, we've got sound. We're good. All righty. Hi, guys. I hope everyone's doing well. It's a beautiful, cloudy day here in the Midwest. Tina, I hope that your family's doing okay. And Zahn, I hope you've gotten to see or at least speak to your kids. So, yeah, I'm gonna just record this and then hopefully you guys can take a peek at this video to see some of my answers to the prompts. Okay, so I have my prompts prepared for the rites of passage. So what I'll do is I'll just read each prompt, share my answer, and then speak to it, and just kind of go from there. Alrighty, so prompts for the rite of passage. Let's see. The best way to introduce ourselves to Van Gennep's study is to look first at the wealth of anthropological evidence describing territorial rites of passage. Skim through this, find some quotes until you locate one or two examples, not just a definition of territorial rites of passage, and provide a brief quote or two here. So the two quotes that I found, and I think I did this right, but the first quote was on page 15. And it says territorial passages can provide a framework for the discussion of rites of the passage, which follows. Not so long ago, the passage from one country to another, from one province to another within each country, and still earlier, even from one manorial domain to another, was accompanied by various formalities. And then the second quote that I found was, today in our part of the world, one country touches another, but the situation was quite different centuries ago. Each country was surrounded by a strip of neutral ground, which in practice was divided into sections and marches, and that was on page 17. Okay, so okay, so this seems pretty straightforward to me. I mean, it's a physical embodiment of moving from one place to another. And there are various ways you can do that, whether it be from outside of the house to inside of the house, from one side of the street to the other side of the street, from one end of the hall to the other end of the hall. Or if we're talking like hard boundaries here, then, from one place to another. So, I mean, it says locate one or two examples, not just a definition. And so these are examples. There are multiple examples in my first quote. And then the next quote about the neutral ground. I remember reading in the excerpts that when people would like kind of leave their territories and go into neutral grounds like forests that were preserved for hunting and so forth, that it was like a sacred thing, a big deal. So that is my answer for prompt one. I hope it is sufficient, or I hope I understood the assignment. So for prompt two, most of our everyday use of the phrase rites of passage do not accurately reflect Van Gennep's technical use of the term. Van Gennep discusses rites of passage in the sense of social rituals. Some as specific rites equals rituals of religion, magic, or superstition. Read through Van Gennep's excerpts below and begin watching the recommended videos until you have a grasp of the three specific stages of rites of passage as Van Gennep sees them. Name and describe those stages and cite the page number from Gennep's quotes below. Okay, so describe the three stages here, write 3 or 4 sentences for each stage, use quotes from the text from one of the videos for your references. Okay, that was the prompt. I have a quote, and it is, the basic procedure is always the same. However, for either a company or an individual, they must stop, wait, go through a transitional period, enter, and be incorporated. So within that quote, we have our stages. So what I decided to do was I'm going to actually compare these stages to Tuckman's stages of group development. So here we go. So first, we have our first stage, which is the preliminary stage. And in the quote, that is stop and wait. In Tuckman's stages of group development, this would be the forming stage. So this stage is from a distance. There's not a lot known about one another, and the initial rites of passage for a group begin. All, um, all that is known is the context for why the group is forming. So a group is coming together. Who are you? Who are you? I don't know. Everyone's kind of like, we got to figure, we got to figure each other out. We got to figure who's going to be in what role, and we got to figure out how we all fit together because we don't know anything about each other. The only thing we know is why we're here. So that would be the first stage, a preliminary stage. Stop, wait, or in Tuckman's stages of group development, forming. Okay. To the second stage, we have our transitional period. So that would be going through a transitional period, storming. So the second stage would be equivalent to storming in Tuckman's stages of group development. Storming, or the second stage, the transitional period, this is the learning phase. And this occurs as conflict and tensions develop over opportunities, ideas, procedures, and direction. In this transitional period, those differences help to define the members of the group, and they learn to compromise and formulate collaboration. So in this stage, this transitional period, the group is going through it. There could be arguments, there could be differences of opinion, and it's in these interactions that it's like, okay, I understand what makes this person tick. So there is the equivalency from the transitional period here to the storming phase of Tuckman's stages of group development. And then we have our third stage, which is rites of incorporation. And in the quote, that is enter and be incorporated. So in Tuckman's stages of group development, that would be norming and performing. So at this point, conflict is normalized and embraced, hopefully, as a mechanism that drives creativity and innovation and innovative problem solving. The members have formed an understanding for each other, and from this ingratiation of each other, they begin to operate efficiently. So after getting through this transitional phase, the group has really started to settle into their distinctive collaborative roles, and they have incorporated each other. And from here, we really start to solve problems, deliver on things. We start to produce good results. And so, yeah, just to recap really quick, the preliminary stage, stop and wait, that is forming. The second stage, transitional period, okay, that would be go through a transitional period, that is the storming phase. And then the third stage, rites of incorporations, enter and be incorporated, that's the norming and the performing stage. And so I just thought it would be kind of cool to take these three stages and to sort of analogously apply them to the stages of group development. So that is my answer for 2. And let's see here, 3. Now, instead of territorial rites of passage, think specifically about non-territorial rites of passage that do not involve physical movement over an actual border or threshold. Find 1 or 2 of these quotes below and paste them here. All right. So the first quote I found was, the rite of eating and drinking together is clearly a rite of incorporation. Often, the sharing of meals is reciprocal, and there is thus an exchange of food which constitutes the confirmation of a bond. Exchanges have a direct constraining effect. To accept a gift is to be bound to the giver. And then the second quote is going to be, it seems important to me that the passage from one social position to another is identified with a territorial passage, such as the entrance to a village or a house, the movement from one room to another, or the crossing of streets and squares. The passage from one group to another is so often ritually expressed by a passage under a portal or by an opening of doors. Okay, so when I think about that, I just think about like a grand entrance. So how would I put this? Uh, Trying to think. So I remember going to the University of Colorado, and I remember every time I would drive onto campus, there was this huge sign, University of Colorado, founded in 18 whatever, blah 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 blah. And the entire campus it's Italian stucco. And anytime they build, it's always done in Italian stucco. So from like one half of the campus to the next, all of the buildings are just like the same beautiful architecture. But I think that like going to college and then being on campus in a way is like a rite of passage. And when you go to a college campus and you kind of look at the architecture and you look at the structure of it, it is in and of itself an embodiment of that rite of passage. Same thing for churches. I've been in many beautiful churches that it's like you walk in and there's just this sort of intention with the artwork, with the stained glass, with the architecture. It's big, it's massive. And it's almost, I feel, kind of meant to remind you of how insignificant you are in the vast realm of the universe, created by God, if you will. And so it's like when cathedrals are built and it's almost meant to overwhelm the person walking through the threshold of those doors because it's just so beautiful and immense and vast. So that is another kind of example I can come up with when it comes to prompt 3. So let me just move along here to prompt 4. Reflect on a personal, family, or friend-related experience that illustrates Van Genep's definitions of rites of passage, such as a personal example of a non-territorial rite of passage. Briefly note it here and add some discussion showing you have some understanding of how this is a rite, indicating passage from one life stage or group or status to another. So I'll just read what I wrote. In a little, excuse me, in a little less than a year, I will be turning 40 years old. As a child, I remember thinking to myself, wow, that is old. And this was informed by colloquialisms such as over the hill or lordy lordy, so-and-so's 40. Additionally, I'd hear about how people would experience a midlife crisis defined by impulsive things like buying a Corvette or having an affair. And so, this is a transition into the second half of life. Our life expectancy is, roughly about 80 years old. Even my upcoming birthday is being mired in humor. My partner wants to throw me the quinceañera I never had, which I wouldn't have because I'm a boy, but birthdays in general harbor rites of passage. 18 years of age, you're a legal adult and can vote. 21 years of age, you can toss that fake ID. And 40 years of age, you grip the reality that life is halfway over. So, for me, I'm coming up on like a rite of passage, and that is turning 40 years old. Although I don't think I have like the same kind of overwhelming, like, oh, it's so old. 40 is young. And I'm not like living in denial or trying to like convince myself. I really do feel that way. Plus, with Botox and filler and hair plugs and so many other things that you can do to just stay young forever. Getting old doesn't look, too bad. But that would be a most direct, obvious example I can come up with from my own life about a rite of passage. So let me just move along here to prompt 5. Because you have been studying the rites of passage, you are now privy to secrets of the social world. Secrets that many of your colleagues remain ignorant of, because these secrets will be of little use unless you put them into practice. How could a professional rite of passage, something at work, have been improved? Or how could you improve on work experiences by using this knowledge of rites of passage? Think of it this way. If it helps, how could you make your leadership more in tune with your colleagues' unspoken needs, feelings, or attitudes about personal and office territory, as well as correct the social order of things in your professional environment? Give details or a specific scenario that you can improve upon. All right, here's my answer. The best way to improve on a professional rite of passage is to communicate clearly defined roles of what people own in the business. As coaches, we all have at my gym as cheerleading coaches. We have about 30 people on our staff. We all have similarly overlapping responsibilities to a number of athletes in the gym. However, we all have our own functions that exist in some kind of osmosis. So we all have a very similar job, but there are like little specific things that we each individually take care of. But there's no like organizational chart, if you will, about who does what and who owns this and who should go to who for what. So there's admittedly a great deal of ambiguity. So what this leads to are questions amongst colleagues when coaches are given new teams, new roles, new things to own. And it is the ambiguity of our roles that inhibits our confidence and what or why something happens. So, we have flagship teams that people want to get their hands on because it's the team that represents the brand. It's the team that represents the program. And it's the team that everybody kind of measures the effectiveness of the program by. And there's not a lot of these teams. My gym has about 25 teams, and we have only really 2 flagship teams. So if a coach gets put on one of those teams, then a lot of people are like, well, why do they get that? Why is that happening for them? Like, what is it that they possess, or what's going on here? And those questions tend to rise because not everybody has a full understanding of how everybody contributes to the business or the organization at large. So in short, a promotion, salary bump, or new responsibilities as a rite of passage can be more clearly understood and supported with better role clarity and understanding of how each individual supports the business. So, a promotion is a huge rite of passage. A pay bump is a rite of passage, or just like getting new responsibilities that maybe someone has a passion for and they want to own. So it's just good to bring people together in the business or in the organization and just create a clearly defined understanding of this is how this individual functions. Another way to kind of promote a better rite of passage in the business is that like we really need to sit down and we need to talk about goals. We need to talk about a career path. We need to talk about like what is it that even if people are part-time, like what do you want to do for the program in the long run? And those are just simply things that don't happen. So I think we're really missing out on a lot of talent, on a lot of capability because we sort of go in and just do the same thing. Now, I don't think that is how things are going to stay. There's been a lot of really good turnover. There are some people that we've needed to get rid of, and they are gone. And the business went from 2 owners to 1 owner. And this new owner, well, she's not new. She's the reason the business is huge. This owner that still has the business, she is just, I hear her speaking and she's saying the things I want to hear. Like, we need to improve in these areas. She's tapping into her trusted coaches. What do you think about this? How do we improve upon that? And so I think we're headed in a good place. And I certainly have amazing, wonderful ideas of my own. And I think the one thing that is changing that does support an improved rite of passage is I believe the coaches and the people involved in this organization are starting to figure out and learn that they can share their ideas and that they can speak to things and be heard. And because most of the things that are being shared idea-wise, they're happening. So these are my prompts. I hope that this informs the conversation for you guys when you have your meeting. And share your link with me so that I can create the YouTube link as a backup and as the additional backup video we're supposed to have. I don't know why I said that twice, but that's where we are today. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great meeting. I can't wait to see you guys again next week, and I will talk to you soon.